Hello. How's it going?
Good afternoon.
Welcome to Make It Make Sense, where we attempt to make sense of the world around us. So this one's going to be, and I'm excited to get into this with you because it's totally different than anything we've done. But first, hello, thanks for being here. Tell me who you are and a wee bit about yourself.
Well, my name is Jerry Cerna. I am Lori's longtime love of her life,
Oh, it's
her accountant, business advisor, soulmate. Need I go on?
Oh my goodness. Yes, all true, all true. So we have been in cahoots for a very long time. You're also always one of the smartest people in the room. So I'm excited to get into this topic with you. So are you ready? You ready to
I
do?
am. Tell everybody what we're talking about today.
We're going to talk about aliens and do they exist and what does it all mean? So first of all, do you believe in aliens?
I I don't know if I do or I don't, but I am certainly willing to accept that they are real.
Okay.
I'm significantly more interested in what the impacts of that are.
Okay. Well, we'll get into that. But would you say that you're religious?
Oh, very much so.
So, do you think you can be religious and believe in aliens?
Oh, certainly, certainly, certainly.
I mean,
I
it's
would.
like the
I
dinosaur evolution thing all
oh
over.
this is very easy. This is very easy.
Okay.
In the continuum, if one chooses to treat the monotheistic tradition of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam as a continuity, there is, dare I say, a belief that God is inherently logical. Through God's application of logic, we get the principles of science.
Okay.
Oh, you've never heard this?
No, I think that people would argue God is illogical. No?
I don't know.
Do you mean like
I've never heard that.
do you mean like because like a logical person is probably one that's not religious, right? Or doesn't believe in. Do you feel the opposite?
Oh, completely. I feel the opposite.
Okay. Tell me more.
And frankly, we could digress or not, but I will rely upon the writings of Saint Thomas Aquinas, who led us to question what is the uncaused cause. If one is indeed logical and looks at, we'll use the word continuity again, the continuity of the evolution of life, we ultimately get back to a point where something created something and we don't know what that something is.
Like the chicken or the egg.
The chicken or the egg, right? I want to believe that modern science today teaches us that a Big Bang occurred, and that was the genesis of the universe. What caused that Big Bang?
A meteor.
Where did that meteor come from?
Outer space, but this is all you're talking circularly. So
Oh, never a day in my life,
okay,
ma'am.
do you believe in dinosaurs?
Yes, I do. I think that that has been readily scientifically proven at this point,
But theoretically, if you believe in evolution,
which I
you
do.
you can't really believe in the Bible or vice versa.
Why is that?
In the way the Bible told it, because it was an Adam and Eve, and it was her from the rib, and they ate from the tree, and then there was a flood. Like, do you?
Well, please remember that you brought up the flood, because as we get a little deeper into aliens, we're going to talk about that flood
Okay.
and the pervasiveness of the story of a great flood in ancient history across many cultures. But I absolutely firmly believe that a religious person such as myself, who believes that God is inherently logical, and therefore God, who gives us the principles of science, would work through the principles of science in order to affect evolution as we know it.
Okay. So then your argument is that God created the universe and other life forms in the universe, and that's what those are the aliens that we're talking about, right?
Fair. I would argue, again, as a religious person, that all life in some way is the direct result of God's plan or design. That would include aliens, absolutely. Do I believe that they're little green men or tall, taunt, gray specters? I don't necessarily. They could be people or humanoid creatures that are almost indistinguishable from you and I.
So I personally think it is probably a little arrogant of us to think that there isn't other life. Like, certainly we haven't gotten it completely right to be the only life form out there. I do think it's interesting that, and I don't know if it's because people have seen them or if it's just lore, but I think it's interesting that they all kind of look the same when people are telling a story about their existence.
They do, don't they?
Which what makes me wonder again, like, which came first? Is it because so many people talked about it and then they changed our perception or whatever we thought they would look like? Or did enough people see them and their stories aligned that now we have this image of what an alien might look like? I don't know which is which.
It's interesting. Let me give you some statistics that blew my mind.
Okay.
50% of people in Western cultures believe in aliens.
In Eastern cultures, Western cultures.
Western.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So half. I mean, what's the percentage though of people who believe in evolution? What's the percentage of people that believe in religion? Because I do think that I have a hard time thinking that all of them can coexist.
Oh, to me, it's pure and simple and inherent. I must just be not explaining it well. It's perfectly reasonable for a religious person who believes in evolution, which I do, that could also believe in the presence of life elsewhere.
Okay.
If God made life on Earth, why is it inconceivable that he couldn't create life elsewhere?
Well, and I think that, so in my research, I think that there was a lot, of course, pointing to science and how you and I think that's probably the weird like dichotomy, is that like science and religion are always kind of put at odds, that they don't coexist. You're speaking about them very much as if they're one and the same, or they are absolutely can
Absolutely. God's law is a natural law.
Okay. So I mean, I think as you talk about the science of, our galaxy, the Milky Way, something like 400 billion stars that are believed to be in the Milky Way, and that of those, there are probably untold billions of galaxies.
Mm-hmm.
So, it wasn't until, I don't even know what year it was, but the Copernican principle that like changed the way that arrogant humans again thought about outer space, right? That was the first, when they shifted and said that the Earth was not the center of the universe. It was actually the sun that was the center of the universe. And there is a second sun-like star and an Earth kind of doppelganger that is 1800 light years away. So there's this other planet that's 1,800 light years away that has a very similar solar system to
Mhm.
what we find with Earth, but this planet is actually a super Earth
Oh,
because
wow.
it's 50% larger
Oh,
than our actual world. But it basically it orbits in an habitable zone around a sun-like star, meaning that water could be liquid on its surface, which means that there is probably
inhabitable.
which but if they figured all this out, why haven't they gone there to figure out if there's life? Is what the part that I don't understand. And some of this says that just saying that there's life doesn't mean that there are two-leg walking beings or animals, but it
They
could
may
just
not be
be
humanoid, right? We don't
could just
know.
be bacteria, could be like microbiomes of some sort, but it's
Mhm.
still considered life, and maybe vegetation. But I think that's wild. Like, if they've already figured all of this out, why have they not gone to look for little green people? And I don't really know how far 1,800 light years is away. I'm guessing pretty far.
1,800 light years.
Yeah. Like how, but they got all that way, figured that out, and then they didn't just like buzz on down and see what it's like. I don't get it.
Well, interstellar travel at this juncture, I think, is a long ways away. But I would argue that the issue of acknowledging or receiving a confirmation of extraterrestrial life could conceivably be one of the jumping off points for that which is necessary to achieve interstellar travel.
Okay.
As I mentioned right at the get go, thinking back to me contemplating this topic, the thing that jumped out at me the most is really not what are the aliens, uh, etc., but more what's the impact to humankind of this discovery? Um, do you think that perhaps, so let's assume for a moment as we continue the discussion that some event happens on Earth where we as a society at large are given undisputable proof that extraterrestrial life exists. Who knows what that is? We find an artifact, something comes to visit us,
All of
etc.
those things have already happened. It's just that people pick and choose whether or not to believe it.
You think so?
Don't you? I mean, the internet is chock full of people of like pictures. There was a mummified little alien person found. I mean, isn't all of what is it? Is it Roswell? That's like all aliens there and that the government was in on it. I mean, I think we have all of those things. There are too many where there's smoke, there's fire. There are too many of these examples for it not to have some truth to it, right?
Possibly. You want to talk about Roswell for a minute?
I don't know enough about Roswell, but sure. Like my son just went there for
Did he really?
he went well not for that, but he went for Thanksgiving. His girlfriend's family is from New Mexico, and he said it was just a weird kind of place to be.
Interesting.
So
So Roswell to me, and that was in 1947. Roswell was really the genesis of, I think, this entire conversation at large. Allegedly, and I believe this came out much later, circa 1997, the Air Force released a report that did, in fact, say it was a balloon. It wasn't a weather balloon, but it was a top secret project to determine if the Soviets were igniting nuclear materials. I don't necessarily buy it. There is a really interesting theory, and I promise to all your hundreds of thousands of listeners
Oh yeah,
that I am not a tinfoil hat kind of person. I really am not. But as Lori said, where there's smoke, there's fire.
sure.
So there is a theory in social anthropology and the study of history about the linear development of human technology. So think from prehistory onward, the development rate for humans of technology has followed a very straight and linear line as time has gone on. So remember, our line went this way, right? Circa 1950, which was shortly after Roswell, it spikes dramatically. Since 1950, we've been to the moon. We've invented various we've invented the cell phone chip, the internet, an extreme amount of technology that was virtually inconceivable prior to 1950. How do you think that happened?
I mean, I don't know that I have an answer to that. I think needs changed. I don't know that it was, I think it felt much more like a steeper spike like around the 90s and 2000s than you're like giving it credit for. Um, but I mean, I don't know how that happened. Are you saying aliens were in on it?
It's a question that's been posed by smarter people than me. Um,
That aliens, so here's the problem that I have with another life form. It
mhm.
is never, it's never like it's the story's always told that they're coming here because clearly we're kind of screwing up the planet. Like that's pretty much a given. So every time that they come here, it's to look at us, look down on us, and like understand what we're up to because they think we're so dumb, which is so interesting. Like that's almost always the story. They're never just trying to be comrades and like let's coexist. It's always we're going to take it's hostile. We're going to take you over. We're going to take you back home so we can study your brain and try to understand what's going on. So we're going to have a hostile takeover and you guys are idiots. Why are humans the worst? So the upsetting part. And if they have technology wherever they
Mhm.
are, they've clearly used said technology better than us because they've landed here and they're doing their own independent research. And we don't even go to the moon anymore. Like, now there's all
Have
of that.
we ever been to the moon?
I know there's all this, it's all conjecture, but like, have we been to the, I mean, I think we have because the moon's really not that far away, honestly.
No, it's not.
Um, but I think we probably been to the moon, but now there's all of this, about was the moon landing faked? Have we even gone into outer space? I don't know. I don't know.
There's a lot of people that you would have to have in on that lie.
Maybe, maybe not. I think we have a tendency to believe some really dumb stuff that the government tells us. I mean, have you seen the video where it's like all of the news anchors, you can put them all on a track and they're all saying the exact same word track and it's all over the country and they might change a word for like Michigan or Missouri or whatever, but
Mm-mm.
it's like a creepy amount of, and I don't know what that points to, if that's aliens or that's some sort of weird propaganda, but I think that, I think that we have a tendency to believe some really sort of unbelievable things that the government tells us.
Very much so. And the space race really had nothing to do with space. It had a lot to do with showcasing the development of intercontinental ballistic missile technology. And certainly at that time, too, there was an ideological component involved. The West and the East were competing along ideological lines for who could drive a society forward the fastest and the best. And perhaps we were able to showcase that through the space race.
Okay. But then that would just lend to the argument that people might have faked it.
They certainly may have. I don't know for sure, but I think you and I certainly agree that we're not engaged in interstellar travel or intergalactic travel. And if we were to be visited, then it would clearly be by a civilization that is far more advanced than us.
100%, and is clearly looking down on us. I mean, like, legitimately, the story is always that you don't think so?
Well,
They're always looking at us like, come on.
I don't. I think there's an interesting range of responses. So in preparing and getting set up for our chat today, one of my peers made the comment that aliens see the Earth as the ghetto of all the planets.
Okay.
So that might lend itself toward the looking down upon Earth.
Yeah.
I would take that out. I would say the responses are only but two, and they're two polar extremes. It's either that extraterrestrials are going to view us hostilely, or they will come to us in a benevolent way. And I think that what one believes that response will be says more about how we view humanity than how we view aliens.
Well, do you ever hear of it not being like, I was abducted and they like took me for a while and it was kind of a hostile kidnapping? I mean, like, I don't ever hear, and maybe it's just the fear of the unknown, but you don't ever really hear like I went to this other planet and chilled out for a while and it was great and everybody was nice to me. Like, it's always kind of hostile and they always think we're kind of dumb.
Now, granted, there's been roughly 4 million Americans alone since 1961 that have claimed that they've been abducted by aliens. I don't think you hear a lot anecdotally of benevolent encounters.
Yeah.
But to date, right, we're dealing with one-off, for the most part, one-off situations where theoretical and alien encounters are happening between either one alien or a group of aliens and solely one individual. Solely one.
So it can't be corroborated. And
Can't be corroborated. And I don't think that an alien encounter really successfully addresses what are the possibilities? What are the implications for the world once we have a bona fide, verified contact with an alien species? Because and you only have two choices, right?
You think there are there are ramifications that?
I think how you look at what that event means, it says more about how you view humanity than aliens. So, for example, there's a lot of people that look upon what we'll just call contact going forward as something to rejoice in. People, I think, will want to collaborate with the aliens. I even wonder if a lot of humans who have somewhat of a very nihilistic view of the world, right? Things are not great in the world right now. That I think a lot of people would be interested in the possibility of altruistic subjugation. Let the aliens rule us.
No, if we are arrogant enough to think that there's not any other life form, we are way too arrogant to say we bow down, please, we'll be our leader. Like but so here's a question.
Mhm.
I feel like reporting happens more with Americans. You hear more, and maybe it's just because we hear more here,
Mhm.
but I don't hear a ton about this happening in other countries. So, like, which would beg the question, why Americans? And like, is it fabricated? Is it factual? I don't know. But I feel like there's a lot more buzz about it than what you hear in other countries.
I think we could get into an interesting discussion here as to the nature of the Western versus Eastern imagination. We talked earlier about how Western civilization very specifically seems to believe in aliens. I don't know specifically what that points to or what's the causation behind that belief. Um,
I mean,
frankly, I'm not terribly familiar with Eastern thought and Eastern philosophy, but if Karl Marx was right in his dialectic about history, where he discusses that all of Western civilization is a study into economics and therefore conflict, that the need to expand, the need to explore, could certainly be a driver behind this imagination that there is something beyond in space, and thereby if there is something or a place per se, there inherently must be people or denizens or some kind of life that inhabits it.
or it could just be on a cycle like we were with evolution, where it starts with the tiniest organism and they're just in their infancy, and we might really be on our way out because we are really any minute like any nuclear bomb could be detonated and take out the planet. Or I thought this was kind of interesting, and this goes to your like biblical, can they coexist?
Mhm.
There's a book called Rare Earth: Why Complex Life is Uncommon in the Universe.
Okay.
And it says that Earth is unusually blessed with conditions
Yep.
that make complex life possible, which
Mhm.
I think all the time. Just like you look at the sky, you look at trees, just how all of it like works together. It's very, that's when it feels very like there must be some sort of deity like involved, like for me, those things. How could anyone think that up? But it says, such as Jupiter being perfectly placed to run interference against dangerous comets. So there have been, I guess, throughout the course of time,
Mhm.
lots of comets, along with your Big Bang theory, right? Lots of comets that potentially could have wiped out or annihilated the Earth that Jupiter stood in the way of,
Mhm.
and we managed to live on.
Speaking of, are you familiar with the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis?
No.
Okay. So there are, I'm going to link to, and I'm not going to use the word conspiracy theory. I think that's kind of an insulting term. I'm sure at one point Galileo was accused of a conspiracy theory.
Okay.
Um, in 1968, an author named Eric von Daniken wrote a really interesting book. We'll call it pseudoscience, not a conspiracy theory. This is pseudoscience. Eric von Daniken wrote a book called Chariots of the Gods. Have you ever heard of this?
Mm-mm.
So he argues that there's elements of ancient technology, whether it's Stonehenge, the pyramids, the Moai on Easter Island, the Nazcan lines in Peru. There's things that the ancients built that it's tough to conceive now how on earth they built them. And I'm going to link Chariots of the Gods and the ancient alien kind of theory with the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis, which is very controversial right now. There is a British author that you may have heard of named Graham Hancock, who's got a very big special on Netflix right now called, I think it's called Ancient Apocalypse. And for all the viewers at home, there are a lot of Joe Rogan show episodes about this. Graham Hancock is a frequent guest. And the argument with the Younger Dryas impact hypothesis is some cataclysmic event like a comet did hit Earth. I think we certainly do have proof that meteors and other celestial bodies have, but I can't speak to whether or not a comet really hit the Earth. We do know that 10,000 years ago, an ice age ended, roughly 10,000 years ago, and Graham Hancock would argue that this caused a mass extinction event throughout the world. This perhaps is the Great Flood that appears throughout ancient religious and secular literature. And as a result of that, and this is where it gets a little wild, there was some ancient civilization that was more technologically advanced than even we are now, that perhaps received instruction from extraterrestrials, and it is the survivors, the survivors of this advanced civilization that was impacted by this comet or the end of the ice age. They passed along all this knowledge to the Sumerians, the Egyptians, the ancient native peoples of current day Mexico, that allowed them to build these structures. Isn't that wild?
It is wild. I mean, I get it. Like, if you've ever looked at the intricacy of a pyramid and what that would take without any like mechanical assistance to build something like that, is insane.
I now, if you want to talk about something I think warrants further investigation, the pyramids are lined up, many of them are lined up so perfectly to a celestial body or a celestial event like a solstice. Some of the stones weigh 25 tons.
Yeah.
Some sites, the stones are cut so precisely that there's no mortar jointing. How on earth were these things made?
By a primitive society without lots of tools and mechanics. I know, that's what I'm saying. Like, I get that part. I mean, I think it's wild. It will blow your mind. Just again, like the weight of some of these boulders to be able to, I mean, even Stonehenge
are, how'd that happen?
Right. So I get it. My favorite of the Vacation franchise was European Vacation.
Okay.
When they let them park their car right up next to Stonehenge, and then he backs up and he like hits one of the boulders and it like does like a domino effect and they all fall
You're
down.
aging us right now. You're telling the world we're 80s babies.
I mean, it was such a great, silly movie. But no, I mean, okay, so yeah, but you think that this is not divine intervention, then it's divine intervention through an alien life form that brought all of these things about? Like, that's what you're proposing?
I'm not even suggesting that I'm proposing it. I am relaying that authors and many people discuss these things for sure.
So if you've done all of this research, like, where do you sit? Yes, you think there are aliens.
I'm certainly open to the possibility that there is
But it's so
intelligent life beyond
non-committal.
us.
You believe it or you don't.
I don't think it's a question of faith. And frankly, you know me very well. I tend not to engage any questions on faith alone. Even my quote unquote faith in God is not driven by the abstract, it's driven by the tangible.
Okay, so because you haven't seen one, you don't really
Uh,
believe it. You haven't seen a lot of stuff that God's putting out there.
I mean, I can simply see the inherent order and function in nature, which leads me to believe that there is some kind of great orchestrator that set these systems into motion.
But see, I don't know, because there are definitely times where I will think, some of those biblical stories are really far-fetched. I can really
Sure.
see, I can really see that they were designed to kind of explain the inexplicable to
Oh,
people.
sure. That's what mythology was for, certainly.
Right. So I don't know. I like, do I think, and can you even like connect all of this in your mind
Sure.
that there's one God
Yep.
that created multiple universes,
Hmm.
and so theoretically, I mean, man was God's creation, if that's the
Hmm.
argument. So that would probably lend itself to there actually being other, if man was made in his likeness, then why do the other guys look like little green with big eyes like creatures and they're 3 feet tall? Like why? Because that can't also be in his likeness. So that would say that realistically there are probably other planets like Earth that
Hmm.
have humans on them because God
Hmm.
created human man in his likeness, right?
Well, let's play with that just for a moment. What is the defining characteristic that separates humankind from animal life?
Opposable thumbs. The ability to like make tools and our cognitive function.
Okay, I think you're getting closer there, right? I would argue it's the ability to engage in rational thought.
Meh. I mean, so much of that's so subjective. So much of this is it could be argued that it's not terribly rational. To your point, we've never seen it.
Never
Just
seen
like
it.
just like we've never seen God, so it would be irrational to just blindly believe. That's kind of the antithesis of rationality, no?
The fact that you and I are several states away,
Yeah.
looking at each other and communicating in the way that we're communicating showcases to me something something special ultimately in the evolution of humankind to be able to develop this kind of technology. We develop technology that far surpasses any other species known to us as people. It is the idea that that is simply happenstance is an idea that I would struggle with.
Well, it's kind of an evolution of sorts. I mean, cavemen are our ancestors, yet they
Mm-hmm.
were much more primitive and not as developed. I mean, our bodies have made certain organs obsolete that are no longer needed.
That's true.
So there are a lot of things that happen through evolution that would stand to reason that we would have kind of gotten here, right?
It takes such an incredible leap in reasoning to do that.
But all of this that you're talking about is a leap in reasoning or a lapse in judgment, perhaps. I mean, just the blindly believing in any of this is probably the antithesis of rational thought because we don't have any proof.
I
We have
I
no-
don't know, and perhaps one would consider again, Aquinas's work to be metaphysical. I don't know if that's a proper application of the word. But again, the theory of the uncaused cause, the inherent order of nature, the ability of humans to perceive time, these concepts are so advanced
Sure.
that it forces one of a rational mind to wonder. I would argue that a fellow individual who worships at the altar of science, who believes in the dust cloud theory or the Big Bang theory, and that is held to be, I don't think the Big Bang is frankly scientifically held anymore. I believe the dust cloud hypothesis is, but again, there requires a degree of energy to be present in the universe in order for that to happen. And science fails on its face to explain where that inertia originated from.
So you mean like how the meteor hit the planet, that
How the meteor hit the planet, how all the gases and particulate matter began to swirl together under a force and pressure great enough to collectivize it into celestial bodies that are now planets. How'd that
Well, I
happen?
mean, well, I don't know, but we see a version of it all the time in our planet. Like, I mean, a tornado is just what you're describing. How does it ramp up and get the force? And it does it all on its own. So it's really not that far-fetched to think. And we see shooting stars all the time, right? I mean, I guess I don't know that I've ever feel like I've really seen a shooting star, but like it's a thing, right? So
I think we know that's a thing.
yeah, so all of these things happening, we know that they happen. So I don't know. I'm compelled to think that the Bang Theory has some, clout. I don't know.
Sure.
The thing is, we can point to
Mhm.
why the Big Bang Theory. We can't necessarily point to aliens. We also can't necessarily point to a god or deity of some form. Like
No.
we're just kind of going on blind faith, right?
Mhm.
So I don't know. I have a hard time reconciling all of it. I definitely believe it's super arrogant for us to think that we're the only life form. But I just want to know if there's another one that's like us. Are they doing better at this than we are? Because
Ooh.
I really do. Or is it like we're two sets of children that have been pitted against each other? If God was in charge of all of this and they're gonna decide which one of us gets it right and terminate the other one, because
Now that I've almost been waiting for us to get to that point, because earlier when we were discussing the implications of confirmed contact, we talked about the potential that some people want and argue for, which is an altruistic subjugation. The alternative to that, which I think there will be an equal desire for, is I think there's a lot of people that are going to see this kind of life as an existential threat on
yeah,
its face, right?
most people react in that way. Yeah.
Honestly, statistically, they do not.
Okay.
It's strange to me because I would tend to fall in the camp of a smart policymaker would inherently view extraterrestrial life as a potential existential threat.
Yeah.
And it would be almost my hope at that point to see some kind of galvanization, global hegemony. We need to get together. All these little squabbles are
We haven't done
inconsequential.
that well over the course of humanity. Like that would take such a different race. Like we're not good at that. amongst.
No, I don't know that that's true. If we look at the course of conflict over even let's just use last century, there have been incredible galvanizations and hegemonic events brought about by war, the threat of the rising Soviet Union. We certainly have had events and threats that have helped people get together.
Yeah, okay, keep going. I don't have a lot of faith in humanity on that one.
I don't, honestly, I don't think you have a lot of faith in humanity, period.
No, agreed.
I think perhaps you're one of these folks that when contact happens, you're going to be hoping and praying that they come to subjugate us and straighten us out.
No, I honestly think we might be like sort of beyond repair. I mean, like again, and this is like a whole topic for like another day, but it's getting hotter. The ice caps are melting. Like there are some things that are like irreversible at this point that have been completely at our hand. So I think, I just would like to get a look at the other Earth and see if they've done a better job. And really like to see if there wasn't a whole other planet and it's all part of a big test to see which one does it best. Did they arrive at all the same things that we did? Do they have automobiles and figured that part out? And was it faster? Was it at the same course? Like that to me is fascinating. If we have a parallel to be able to see how well they're doing it and if it's better than us. But, with, in this research, like I think a lot of it kind of summed up exactly like how I feel about it. It said, like with so much turf out there, even the biggest skeptic, it's hard to believe that a 13.8 billion year old universe, that there would only be one self-aware technological telescope constructing species. Like it's just probably our arrogance to think that we're the only ones. So I definitely, and who knows? I mean, there really could be aliens living amongst us. They really
right
could
now
look just like us.
Yeah.
I've definitely met some folks in this life that I thought didn't act like, the rest of us. And maybe they were a little peculiar or alien. Right. So I don't know. I just think it's arrogant to think that it's not a thing. I think there's probably other life form. I wonder if Elon's going to be able to pull off the Mars thing. And, I think that a common chord as I read about this topic was that many argue that there are aliens, but they're just too far away for us to communicate with.
Could be.
And so if that's the case, I can't even begin to think with my tiny human brain how big the entire universe is, or like my kids talk a lot about the multiverse, right? Because there's like the multiverse Spider-Man thing. And like, if there are these kind of parallel universes running at the same time, and it's too much to even fathom, and they probably won't figure it all out in our lifetime, but I think it's fun to entertain. I don't think that I want aliens to come here to save us.
I'm actually intrigued at the possibility of, again, the galvanization of the species. I'm definitely not advocating for a one world government per se, but some degree of global hegemony, because we believe in this existential threat. And we really get our act together as a species to counter it, encounter it, invade it, conquer it, and subjugate it.
Okay.
Like a Starship Troopers kind of future.
We will not be alive for that, I hope. But and I'm kind of glad about, I don't know. I mean, the Star Wars movies are fun to watch, but I don't know that I want to live in that
Star
world.
Wars. No, not Star Wars. Starship Troopers.
Starship. Well, any of it. I'm not sure that I want to be around for any of that, like where we're just hopping on. Even Star Trek, the OG, it looks fun, but no, the beam me up Scotty thing, no, I don't want to be
Oh,
around
you're
for.
not beaming me anywhere, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I don't think I want to be a part of any of it. But I don't think we're any closer to understanding if but there's a whole group, the SETI group. Did you run across this in your study?
The
Search for
SETI.
SETI, I guess that's how you pronounce it. Search for extraterrestrial intelligence. There's an entire like group or movement that this is what they do. They just study to see if there are extraterrestrials. So
Is this the group that Tom DeLonge's a part of?
I don't know the answer to
Tom
that.
DeLonge from Blink-182?
Oh my gosh, I have no idea.
You know he's very famous in the UFO arena.
I did not know that.
No, I'll tell you this. This is just a date I've got stuck in my head. But in September 2019, Tom DeLonge came into the possession, and he quit Blink 182 for a while to become a UFO researcher. This is all true.
Oh my.
And he got a hold of camera footage from a gun turret on a naval plane as they were chasing a UFO in the Pacific Ocean outside of San Diego. And there were congressional hearings on this where he got the Navy to formally admit that the phenomena on the video is unidentified, that they have no idea what it was that they were chasing, but they were chasing something.
Where does a commoner get such footage? How does a commoner stumble upon this sort of, that's wild to me. And getting the government to sign off on anything doesn't seem like it's the easiest feat. So he really wore them down, right?
It's, fame is a powerful tool in America, isn't it?
Well, also the Americans are the only ones that are talking about all of this. So maybe we're just all a little bit off our rocker.
Oh, no, I mean, there's a degree of hubris in the West where in contemplating our own humility, in contemplating the idea that we are not the most advanced species, in some respects, shows a degree of hubris, right? Our imaginations are leading us to create or fabricate something greater.
Again, which is very much kind of in line with the Bible. Mm-hmm. There's so many things we don't understand. So we're inventing a story so it makes sense in something that is not like intuitive and isn't just commonsensical. Right?
Do you remember the song when we were kids? I think it was XTC called Dear God.
Maybe
we look it up after this. I believe one of the lines in that song is, "Did we make you after you made us?"
I don't know this song.
That lyric is song?
Not familiar at all.
You look that one up. It's an interesting idea, right?
Well, it's all interesting. I hope you get abducted by aliens.
Why would you hope that I get abducted by aliens?
And then you can report back, because you seem way more keen with all of it. I think we should.
I'm just open to it. I'm just open to it. They don't want me. I'll tell you that. I'm going to be the one here leading the Terran Federation, leading the resistance.
Well, even when they abduct, supposedly, they always send them back.
Do they?
Don't they?
I don't know. I've never been abducted.
Are you one of the aliens living amongst us? I need to know.
No, ma'am. No, not at all.
Well,
nobody's probing me, I'll tell you that.
Oh my gosh.
They can probe me intellectually. That's it.
Well, on that note, I do have one final question for you.
Okay.
Uh, If you, and this is just one that I ask to everybody at the very
Mhm.
end of this activity, if
Mhm.
you could give your younger self one piece of advice, what would it be?
How much younger?
That it would
It's
have made a difference.
truly and sincerely, and this is a conversation I have a lot with my clients in recent years. Um, Education is valuable, but not every education is valuable. If you're going to go to college, go to the absolute best school you can for the thing that you want to do and really apply yourself and gain knowledge and gain the skills, intellectual skills necessary for you to continue to learn and grow. Because the world is tough, the job market is tough, and you need to be able to compete, plain and simple. The world doesn't owe you anything, and you simply need to equip yourself with the best skills and tools you can to go out there and make something happen for yourself. Because I think it's only going to get harder and harder to be economically viable. And young people today really need to understand that. To the young men specifically out there in the world, you have no business probably going to college to get a mediocre degree. Go to the military, learn a trade, do something that's going to help you be able to make a living. Apply yourself harder, work harder. You're going to need to.
This could be an entirely other episode, but I don't know. I think it's great advice. I appreciate how it, comes to light because of what you do and the clients that you deal with. But I don't know that an 18-year-old is ready to go and pick a degree and apply themselves 1,000,000% to something for the rest of their lives. Like
And you know what? That is probably in part why, Israeli children don't go to college at 18. There's reasons. I think there's good reasons to some degree defer that. Uh, but our system of higher education from high school and up is maybe not what we want it to be right now. And I I think it impacts our kids, and we as parents and adults, we need to guide the kids the best we can, even 18-year-olds.
Okay. Well, I think it's good advice. I think you can call and say it to my kids whenever you have a minute. Tell them to apply themselves because I think that,
Your
yeah,
kids are great, but
the-
I'll be the bad cop to your kids, no problem.
I think the world is getting harder, but I get it. I agree. I think I talk to people all the time that are having trouble with this market and with what to do with themselves next. So, well, this was fun talking to you. I
As
hope
always.
I don't hope that you get abducted by aliens, but
I
if you
was gonna say, what would your life like be?
But
What
what
would your
but
life be
if you
without me?
do, I want a full progress report. I wanna know everything. So, please take a notepad.
Deal.
But thank you for spending this time with me, and, that's it. Love ya.
Love you too. Everybody tune in to Make It Make Sense. It's a great
Yep.
show.
Alright, friend. Talk to you soon.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.